What if I told you that the memory you're most certain about, the one you can replay in your head right now, frame by frame, the one that still makes your chest tighten a little when it surfaces, never actually happened the way you remember it? Not because your memory is broken. Not because you're lying to yourself. Not because you're misremembering, in the casual way we usually mean it. But because of something far stranger. Something physics has been quietly hinting at for almost a century, and something neuroscience is only now catching up to. Here's the question I want you to sit with for the rest of this video: is your past a fixed, unchangeable fact, locked in stone the moment it happened? Or is it something your mind is actively rebuilding, right now, in this exact second, every single time you think about it? I know how that sounds. It sounds like the kind of thing you'd dismiss after 10 seconds. But give me the next few minutes, because by the end of this video, you are going to look at your own history in a completely different way. Not as a viewer. As someone who understands, on a physical and psychological level, why the past might not be as finished as you think it is. Let's start with something almost nobody talks about. Your brain generates somewhere between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. Read that number again. 60 to 80,000. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Researchers who study thought patterns estimate that the overwhelming majority of those thoughts are not new. They are repeats. Echoes. Loops. The same interpretations of the same handful of memories, playing over and over, so smoothly and so quickly that you don't even register you're doing it. You wake up in the morning, and before you've had coffee, your mind has already run through some version of an old argument, an old failure, an old fear. You think you're recalling the past. But what if, every single time, you are actually rebuilding it, and rebuilding it with whatever emotional material you happen to be carrying that day? If you're feeling anxious this morning, that memory comes back sharper, darker, more threatening than it actually was. If you're feeling calm and secure, the exact same memory can feel almost distant, manageable, even instructive. Same event. Different memory. Every single time. That's not just a poetic idea I'm offering you to feel better. It's rooted in one of the strangest, most debated experiments ever conducted in physics, an experiment that appears to show that the act of observing something right now can reach backward and change what happened before it was ever observed at all. It's called the delayed choice experiment, first proposed by the physicist John Wheeler in the 1970s. And once you understand what it suggests, even at the simplest possible level, no physics degree required, you will never think about the past the same way again. Here's a question I want you to keep in your mind as we go, because we are absolutely coming back to it. If observation, made in the present, can influence something that already happened at the level of particles, what does that mean for the way you observe, and re-observe, the events of your own life? What does it mean for the memories you keep replaying, on loop, 60 to 80,000 times a day? Keep that question close. Don't let it go yet. Because in part 2, we are going to walk through exactly what Wheeler's experiment shows, slowly, carefully, with zero jargon, so that even if you've never taken a physics class in your life, you will walk away actually understanding it. And then we're going to build a bridge from that experiment to something deeply, uncomfortably personal, the way your brain quietly rewrites memory every single time you touch it, especially painful memory. Especially trauma. Especially the moments you thought were permanently, unchangeably fixed. And in part 3, this is where the video stops being theoretical and becomes something you can actually use. I am going to walk you through a real, structured technique inspired by these ideas. A specific way of consciously re-observing a painful memory that many people describe as genuinely changing how that memory feels in their body, even though the facts of what happened never change at all. I want to be honest with you about something right now, before we go any further, because I don't want you leaving this video with the wrong idea. This is not a claim that you can rewrite objective history, or erase trauma with a 5-minute trick. What we're exploring is something more grounded, more real, and in some ways more useful than magical thinking, the idea that the way you re-experience the past has actual, measurable power over what that past continues to do to you today. So don't look away yet. The strangest part, and the most useful part, is still ahead of us. Let's break down Wheeler's delayed choice experiment, because once you truly see it, you cannot unsee it. And I promise, we're going to keep this simple. Picture a single particle of light, a photon, traveling toward a barrier with two possible paths through it. In ordinary, everyday life, we assume an object takes one path or the other. It goes left, or it goes right. Simple. But in quantum physics, something bizarre happens when nobody is watching. When there is no observation, the particle doesn't commit to one path. Instead, it behaves as if it travels through both paths simultaneously, existing in a strange, undecided, in-between state. Physicists describe this as a superposition, a kind of blurred cloud of possibility rather than a single, solid fact. Here's where it gets stranger. The moment you set up a way to measure which path the particle actually took, the moment you observe it, that blur collapses. The particle decides, retroactively, that it took one specific path all along, and only that path shows up in the results. So far, strange, but manageable. Here is the part that made physicists' jaws drop. Wheeler designed a version of this experiment where the decision of how to observe the particle, whether to check which path it took, or to not check at all and let it remain a blur, is made after the particle has already passed through the barrier. After the fact. The measuring decision comes later than the event it's supposedly measuring. And the results, replicated again and again in labs around the world, were consistent. The choice made afterward appeared to determine what the particle had done earlier. It was as if observing something in the present reached backward in time and decided the nature of an event that had, from our normal point of view, already happened, now, and this really matters, because I don't want to oversell the physics. Scientists still debate exactly what this means at the deepest level. Nobody serious is claiming we can time travel, or that we can physically undo a car crash or rewrite a historical event. What the experiment does strongly suggest, however, is this: at the smallest scales of reality, the past is not a fixed filmstrip sitting quietly in a vault, waiting patiently to be looked at. It behaves more like something that isn't fully settled, isn't fully real in a finished sense, until it's observed. In a strange way, reality gets finalized in the act of noticing it. Hold on to that idea. Now let's talk about your brain, because this is where the story turns personal. For most of the last century, we assumed memory worked like a video recorder bolted into your skull. You experience something, it gets recorded onto a kind of internal tape, and forever after, remembering just means hitting play and watching the same footage, unchanged, over and over. Neat. Fixed. Reliable. Comforting, in its own way. Neuroscience has completely dismantled that comfortable idea. There is a well-documented, heavily studied process called memory reconsolidation. Here is how it actually works, in plain language. Every time you recall a memory, every single time, your brain does not simply replay it like a file on a hard drive. It pulls that memory physically out of long-term storage, and for a window of time afterward, that memory becomes soft. Unstable. Editable, at a biochemical level, inside your neurons. Then, as the memory gets filed back away into storage, it is rewritten, updated with whatever emotional state you were in while you were remembering it, whatever beliefs you currently hold about yourself, whatever understanding of the world you're currently operating from. Which means, quite literally, that every time you remember something, you are not retrieving the original event. You never actually touch the original event again. You are retrieving the last version of it that you rewrote, the last time you happened to think about it. Now put these two ideas side by side, because this is the connection I promised you. In physics, observation, made in the present moment, appears to play a role in settling what happened in the past. In neuroscience, recollection, made in the present moment, actively rewrites the biological memory of the past. Do you see the pattern forming here? Whether we're talking about a single photon in a laboratory or a childhood memory sitting in your hippocampus, the present moment of observation seems to hold enormous, almost uncomfortable power over how the past gets finalized, over and over, indefinitely, for as long as you keep remembering it. This is where it becomes personal, and where I want you to really lean in, because this is where the video stops being an interesting science fact and becomes something that might explain a pattern in your own life. If this dynamic is true for pleasant memories, and it is, then it is just as true, arguably more true, for painful ones. And this is exactly where trauma enters the conversation. When something painful happens to us, we don't just store the raw facts of the event, the way a security camera would. We store an emotional interpretation of it, and that interpretation is almost always formed in a moment of fear, confusion, shame, or powerlessness, because that's precisely the emotional state we tend to be in when something painful is happening to us. And because of reconsolidation, every single time we revisit that memory without consciously choosing a new perspective, we do not heal it. We reinforce it. We essentially collapse the memory back into the exact same painful interpretation, again and again, strengthening the very same neural and emotional pathway that's already causing us pain, like walking the same rut in the mud until it becomes a trench. It is almost as if the memory becomes entangled with an old version of you, a version that was scared, or hurt, or very young, or completely powerless in that moment, and every unconscious replay pulls your present-day self back into that same entanglement, instead of releasing it, instead of letting it settle into something new. So here is the real question this raises, and it's the question that's going to carry us into part 3, if the way you observe a memory genuinely shapes what that memory becomes, physiologically and emotionally, what happens if you deliberately, consciously, change how you observe it? Could re-observing a painful memory, not to erase what happened, because the raw facts don't change, they can't change, but to consciously bring a different, wiser, more grounded awareness to it, could that actually shift the memory's emotional charge? Could it change what that memory means to you, and by extension, change what it is still quietly doing to your nervous system, your relationships, your choices, right now, in your present life? This is exactly the idea we're about to put into practice. Understanding this concept intellectually is interesting, and maybe even a little unsettling. But learning how to actually use it, deliberately, on a real memory of your own, that's where this stops being a science video and starts being something else entirely. Before we move on, let me give you one more piece of the puzzle, because it makes everything we just covered even more concrete. Therapists who work with trauma have a name for memories that seem to resist ordinary talking it out. They call them stuck memories, or memories that are still live. A stuck memory doesn't feel like something from 10 years ago. It feels like it's still happening, right now, in your body, the instant it gets triggered. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing changes, your muscles brace, exactly as if the original event were unfolding all over again. That physical immediacy is a clue. It suggests the memory was never properly filed with a resolved, settled interpretation. It's still sitting in that soft, editable, unresolved state we talked about, still waiting, in a sense, to be observed in a way that lets it finally settle. Don't go anywhere. I'll walk you through the exact technique, step by step, designed to apply everything we've just covered to a memory that's genuinely yours. Okay. Let's turn everything we just learned into something you can actually use, starting today. Before we get into it, I want to be upfront about something, because I respect you too much to oversell this. This is not a claim that you can rewrite objective facts, or that deep trauma dissolves completely with a single technique watched on YouTube. What we're working with here is something more grounded, and honestly more useful in the long run, the well-supported idea that how you re-experience a memory changes what that memory does inside you, emotionally and physiologically. Think of this less as magic, and more as a deliberate, structured way of using memory reconsolidation, that rewriting window we talked about a moment ago, on purpose, instead of letting it happen to you by accident, the way it usually does. I call this the quantum observation technique. It has 3 steps. Simple to understand, but genuinely challenging to practice, so don't judge it by how easy it sounds while you're sitting there watching. Step 1, create distance, become the observer, not the participant. Choose a memory to work with. For your first attempt, don't reach for your single biggest wound. Start with something moderate, a memory that still stings a little, but doesn't overwhelm you the moment you touch it. Now, instead of reliving it from inside your own eyes, the way you almost certainly do by default, deliberately imagine watching it like a scene playing out in a film. Picture yourself sitting in a theater seat. You're in the audience now. You can see, past you, up there on the screen, moving through the moment, saying what they said, feeling what they felt. This single shift, from participant to observer, is one of the most well-documented ways therapists use to reduce the emotional intensity of a memory, because it interrupts the automatic, unconscious relapse into the same old pain, the same old trench in the mud. You are, quite literally, changing the position from which the observation is happening. Step 2. Bring in the new observer, your present-day awareness. Here is the key move, the one that actually does the work. Ask yourself directly, with everything I know and understand today, everything I've survived, everything I've learned about myself since then, what would I say to that version of me, up there on the screen, going through this? Not to fix the past. Not to pretend it didn't hurt, or that it should have gone differently. But to bring a wiser, steadier, more resourced presence into the room with them, a presence that simply did not exist back when the event originally happened. This is the moment where, if the physics metaphor genuinely holds any water at all, you are consciously choosing how to observe the memory, instead of passively letting an old, frightened, powerless interpretation observe it for you by default, the way it has every single time before now. Step 3. Let the meaning reconsolidate. Ask one final question, and sit with it for longer than feels comfortable. What did this moment ultimately teach me, or make possible in who I have since become? This is not about forcing toxic positivity onto real pain, and it's not about pretending something good had to happen, for a reason. It's about deliberately allowing the memory to be filed back away, because remember, it will be filed back away. That's simply how reconsolidation works, with a more complete, more compassionate meaning attached to it, instead of the same raw, frozen, powerless interpretation it's been stuck with for years. A quick note on what to expect, because I don't want you disappointed if the very first attempt doesn't feel like a lightning bolt. For some people, this shift happens quickly, almost surprisingly so. The memory genuinely feels lighter within minutes. For others, it takes several passes, revisiting the same memory 2 or 3 times over a week or two, each time bringing a slightly steadier observer into the room, before the emotional charge visibly drops. Both are completely normal. This isn't a performance, and there's no correct speed at which healing is supposed to happen. If a memory feels too large, too overwhelming, or brings up something you don't feel equipped to sit with alone, that's exactly the kind of moment where working with a trained therapist, rather than a YouTube video, is the right and responsible next step. This technique is a tool for reflection, not a replacement for professional support when you genuinely need it. Here is the phrase I want you to actually remember from this entire video, the one sentence to carry with you after you close this tab: the event itself doesn't change. But its hold on you can. The facts of what happened stay exactly, precisely as they were. Nothing about this technique rewrites history, and nobody credible would ever claim that it does. But the emotional entanglement, that invisible thread pulling your present-day nervous system back into an old wound, every time it gets triggered by something completely unrelated in your current life, that thread can loosen. It can genuinely loosen. And many people who've practiced this kind of conscious reobservation describe it as feeling, almost physically, like something finally settled. Like a loop that had been running quietly in the background for years finally closed. So let's bring this all the way back to the question we opened with. Is your past a fixed, unchangeable fact, sitting there in stone, completely finished the moment it happened? Or is it closer to a living field of possibility, a blur, a superposition, a set of interpretations, waiting for the version of you standing here, right now, today, to decide what it finally becomes? Maybe the past isn't a weight you're doomed to carry forever, exactly as it was handed to you. Maybe it's closer to a question your present self simply hasn't finished answering yet. And that leads me to what I want to ask of you before you go. I want you to think of one memory right now, just one, that still has a real grip on you. Something you've replayed the same way, with the same pain, more times than you could possibly count. This week, I want you to actually try this technique on it. Step outside it, into the audience seat. Bring your present-day wisdom into the room with your past self. Ask, honestly, what it taught you. And then come back and tell me in the comments, what changed when you looked at it differently. Did the memory feel exactly the same as it always has, or did something in you genuinely shift, even a little? If this idea resonated with you, you already know where to find more of this. Reality, in more ways than we usually admit, bends around the way you choose to see it. Stay curious. Stay conscious. This has been PsyBeyond.